For real people, real talk, and unreal news, this is Sunday Blues with Ren and Jerry.
So Marketplace, which is a show on NPR, came out with a pretty interesting report last week. And it concerns an Environmental Protection Agency study. It was a 5-year-long study on fracking and its potential impacts on our drinking water. And the study was released last year in June. And basically what Marketplace discovered through investigative reporting is that they changed the executive summary and basically the overall outlook, or kind of their conclusion that they came to from the study at the very last minute, like literally the day before they released it. So I'm just going to go ahead and read to you from this Marketplace article. It's by Scott Tong and Tom Scheck. It's called EPA's Late Changes to Fracking Study Downplay the Risk of Drinking Water Pollution. So it says, documents obtained by APM Reports and Marketplace show that in the 6 weeks before the study's public release, officials inserted a key phrase into the executive summary that said researchers did not find evidence of widespread systemic impact of fracking by the oil and gas industry on the nation's drinking water. The documents also show that the news release accompanying the scientific study was changed on June 3rd, 2015, the day before it was made public. A draft displayed a conclusion that the EPA had identified quote-unquote potential vulnerabilities to drinking water, but the final release dated June 4th concluded, quote, assessment shows hydraulic fracturing activities have not led to widespread systemic impacts to drinking water resources and identifies important vulnerabilities to drinking water resources. So, and it sounds like kind of a small change, right? Like, oh, okay, well, they're still saying potential vulnerabilities, but they even have this picture here in this article that shows on June 3rd, the headline, the draft press release headline says, EPA identifies potential vulnerability to drinking water from hydraulic fracking process. The final one that was released to all the mainstream press and ended up grabbing headlines like, in the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these major outlets, obviously the major news networks, was EPA releases draft assessment on potential impacts to drinking water resources from hydraulic fracturing activities. And then the little subheading that they have. So even that, their main heading is just very vague, right? In general, it doesn't even have a conclusion. And then the subheading now says that there's no widespread systemic impact.
That is so shameful. That is such crap. We all know that hydraulic fracking poisons our water. We've all seen the water that's lit on fire. To me, this is what they're saying. They're saying all the people who have experienced fracking wells in their area and have contaminated water and can light their water on fire, that we're not even going to acknowledge the potential health effects of that, how that can really affect your health, your children's health, your dog's health. It's just bullshit that they expect people to drink that, and anyone that complains about it is what? Are we just whiners? I mean...
Well, yeah, and it's not even true to the science. Like, as I said, this was a 5-year-long study. It was 1,000 pages long. Of course, they had tons and tons of data. And the summary that they chose to give it, which is, kind of what this article is pointing out and arguing, is completely not conducive to what was actually in the study.
Yeah, what was in the study? Because you're right, all the media just goes off this one little sentence that they're putting on the press release to basically delegitimize the entire scientific study.
Yeah, so here's more from the article. It says, in fact, scientists had found evidence in some places that fracking activity had polluted drinking water supplies. In all, the agency identified more than 24 instances in which hydraulic fracturing had made an impact on water sources. The agency also identified hundreds of other spills, many of which reached soil and water. So there's that. And then also they don't list these sources, but they say in interviews with 19 people familiar with the research, some characterize the quote no widespread systemic language as a quote bizarre conclusion and quote irresponsible.
Yes.
Others said they were quote surprised and disappointed that the top EPA officials used the phrase and said they had no idea it would become a headline until it came out.
Oh, bullshit.
So that shows you that there's other people that were working on this research. Obviously obviously it's a 5-year long study. They probably had a whole staff of people going to different places. And some of these people are saying, what? That's not the conclusion that we reached. So there's a lot of shady stuff going on. They also met with like White House officials in the Obama administration a couple months before so they could be quote unquote clear on messaging.
Exactly. Wait, right there. Let's just analyze that. Clear on messaging. I'm sorry, but science doesn't have messaging. Science is science. I've researched this. These are my facts. This was my hypothesis. This is my conclusion based on it. What messaging do we want to give? That right there. It's the problem. That illustrates the problem with our government. That we can't just look on science and report the facts. No, we have to. But Obama, is this okay? Because we know that you've really pushed natural gas and fracking all over the country, and Hillary, as Secretary of State, pushed it all over the world. Is it okay if we say that it has negative effects on your health? Of course he's going to say no. Like, they're going to frame it to where it's this, like, they're not really saying anything, but they're sort of saying something, somewhere in the middle where it's just not hard evidence.
Yeah, exactly. It's not hard evidence at all. And the fact is that the American people have the right to know, because this article also goes on to say that the number of hydraulically fractured wells drilled nationwide has jumped from 24,000 in 2000, the year 2000, to 300,000 in 2015.
Exactly.
So and then they also said there's about 9.4 million people in our country that live less than a mile from a fracked well. So yes, this is a huge public health issue.
9 million people.
We can't sweep this under the rug. We can't ignore it. We can't just say, oh, well, even though we found all these instances of spills and where it did reach people's water supply, we're just gonna still send out this executive summary and release this to the press like this. And it did. That's the thing. It dominated headlines. Oh, no widespread systemic impact. They knew. That's why they used it in the subtitle. Yeah, because that's like our soundbite society or whatever.
And that's how the media operates as well. Does the media decide to go and try to question this a little bit more? I guess in this case, this was a story from NPR discovering this. But,
far after the fact,
But after the fact, and like you were saying, the way the media operates is the government tells them what to say, and they say it. And that's it. They give them the media works with the government. They don't work to question the government. And that's really wrong. They need to question these findings. And
it just gives all these conservative lawmakers and just people in general that are supportive of fracking, it just gives them extra ammunition to say, well, we did this huge study that you wanted us to do, and look what they found. No widespread systemic impact. So
it's about
screw
business.
You. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep doing this. So to me, this is a pretty big story. I encourage everyone who's listening to this to read this full article. It's very detailed and good, and they even towards the end of the article go and interview some people that have been directly impacted by fracking, and their water's all messed up, and they're trying to sue the government and sue the EPA right now in response. But another shady issue is that there were 3 instances where the EPA was supposed to be investigating complaints, and then they just suddenly dropped it, backed out of it, and left it to the state and local government. So that just seemed very shady.
No, the EPA is working to protect fracking. It works to protect the natural gas industry, because that's the boom. The EPA also says, the EPA has said that natural gas is clean energy. How the hell is it clean energy? Yes, it burns cleaner, but what does it take to get there? They have to take over people's land. They have to blast holes in the earth. Then they have to shoot all these chemicals underneath the earth. And waste lots of water and contaminate lots of water that way. Then those chemicals go down into the ground and then contaminate our drinking water. And what they've done there also is causing earthquakes in these areas. You can see
Yeah.
it in Oklahoma. We talked about that before. You see it in Pennsylvania. You see earthquakes in Texas that have never happened before, and where suddenly earthquakes are growing and growing and growing. I mean, there are some serious implications to natural gas. We're trying to get away from dirty fossil fuel oil. And so this is our solution to poison the drinking water. We're creating a whole other problem, and we're spreading it across the entire world, saying this is the answer because we're so abundant in natural gas. What the fuck happened to clean energy, Obama? I'm sorry, but you pushed renewable energy. Yes, I'm sure you've done some subsidies. You pushed some electric cars, but we need a massive infrastructure on renewable energy. And yes, you have Republicans stopping you, but there is so much more that you can do. I'm sorry, you pushing natural gas as clean energy as a fucking way to save the earth from climate change is this bullshit. It's just fucking business, and you're using climate change as a fucking tool to get your donors to fucking make some more money. I'm extremely pissed about this because we're creating a whole nother problem that runs parallel to climate change, and climate change is already a massive issue that we're gonna have to deal with for years to come. We're already there. The climate's changing. A lot of the people in developing countries are getting fucked, and it's gonna happen to us too. Not to mention all the biodiversity, the coral reefs are burned. I'm sorry, this is just ridiculous. That's all climate change. Now we're gonna have to deal with drinking water and earthquakes.
That's completely contaminated, and yes, an earthquake. So this is a huge issue, and to me, the most disturbing thing is, I was already questioning the EPA in a lot of instances. There's been several decisions that they've made to drill into aquifers for fracking companies to allow fracking waste chemicals to be dumped in the Gulf, just open Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Fuck Gulf, fuck all the turtles and the fish and the people that try to, not that try, but that do make a living off of the Gulf Coast economy.
Right.
Screw all them. We're just going to totally give fracking companies and oil and gas companies these permits to dump chemicals in our Gulf Ocean.
To go offshore drilling.
So,
on top of the whole BP spill that lasted for months, releasing tremendous amounts of oil into our fucking ocean.
And they're still doing offshore drilling permits in the Gulf even after that big catastrophe. It's like, so our Environmental Protection Agency, I'm sorry, they've just been castrated practically. I mean, they don't have, to me at this point, and then especially viewing this, they really don't have scientific integrity. And to me, that's one of the first steps that we're gonna have to really figure out a way. How are we gonna reform the Environmental Protection Agency to actually be run by scientists with integrity that are unbiased and care about protecting the people? Because clearly they don't. Clearly they want to get clear on the messaging with the president, and they're being used as a political tool of the whatever administration. And now that administration is going to be Trump, that's even scarier. Because either Trump's going to completely try to dismantle them, or if he's smarter than that, he'll, use them to even greater purpose to try to show, oh, this and that chemical, and this is safe for the environment, and
use them to give more leases to more oil and gas companies.
Yeah, these regulatory agencies, EPA, FDA, they need to be responding to the needs of the people, and there needs to be some sort of accountability with the people. I don't know how we would do that. I'm just saying, right now, there's no responsiveness because all of these are presidential appointed positions.
And where did these people come from before the president appoints them? They probably most of them do come from other companies that have business interests in granting leases to these oil and gas companies, or depending on where they are. That's the revolving door. I'm sure you've already seen Trump's other picks, even Obama, like the Treasury pick. They're from Wall Street. They're the banks that screwed up, and we had to bail out, and we're having them come and advise us.
Yeah, but going back to this particular issue, even the EPA has a science advisory board, which is kind of supposed to be their objective check, even though they really don't It doesn't really seem like they have much power. They just kind of review things and tell them their findings. But they said the advisory board, this is from the article again, the advisory board also rebuked the EPA's conclusion of no widespread systemic impacts. Calling the phrase ambiguous and inconsistent with the observational data, the advisory board directed the EPA to show the underlying data to back up its claim for no widespread systemic impacts. We suggested that they provide a definition of quote-unquote systemic, a definition of widespread, then provide quantitative data to support the conclusion. Okay, that sounds reasonable. And then that was said by Peter Thorne, a University of Iowa environmental scientist who chairs the Science Advisory Board. That is all a way of asking them to put that kind of scientific rigor behind a statement as broad as that. And yes, I agree with that guy 100%. That's a very just broad, like, yeah, you need definition for each of those words. Like, because what, is 24 instances not enough?
Yeah, well,
you know, is hundreds of spills that reach water or soil not enough to be qualified as widespread?
Yeah, well, that just hurts their messaging. So
yeah,
and the press needs their messaging. Sorry, I'm pissed about this.
I was pissed too. Like when I heard this, and like of course, you know, wasn't really picked up by the mainstream media at all. They could care less because if you notice, if you watch CNN, if you watch MSNBC, if you watch anything, any TV media, but even beyond that, just like regular print media, the standard ones like New York Times, no one's really talking about fracking that much, you know, despite all these grassroots campaigns that are going on around the nation to try to end it. Yeah, because people know we're not stupid. We know when our water changes color, lights on fire, and smells and tastes bad, probably shouldn't be drinking it.
Yes,
you know, we're
exactly.
not dumb.
It's not a partisan issue for the people. There's no Republican and Democrats people that are fighting over this issue. If you experience it, it's a problem. You know, unfortunately our politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, support fracking, support natural gas. So this is really a fight where people on all sides need to come together and really pressure our politicians on this issue because they don't represent us on this issue. They represent the business interests at the expense of us and our health and our kids' health in the future because we don't have a lot of drinking water in the United States.
No, we don't. And, you know, what's really the saddest part about it to me is that because there's just this total tendency by the industry, and now even by our own Environmental Protection Agency, to just look the other way and just say, well, it could be dangerous, but it's not that dangerous, you know? Like, what's going to end up happening is 20 years down the line in all these areas where there's heavy, intense fracking, you're probably going to see a spike in cancer rates, chronic diseases. They're going to do demographic studies that show all this, and then how are we going to clean all of our underground aquifers? They're already going to be contaminated. It's too late. Like, don't you get it? Don't you understand? And then also, the thing that makes me the most angry about it is that those people's health are being threatened without even their knowledge. And you're making a decision to shorten their lives because you want to make money and because you think that this is the best way to do it. And you're not even willing to fully follow through with the scientific rigor, as that guy said, that those people deserve. Because, yeah, like, I can tell you right now, like, when that starts happening, people are going to be devastated. Communities are going to be devastated. And we're all going to be looking back at this moment in the fucking EPA changing their findings, even though they did find pollution and contamination, and just selling this lie so that we could continue on when they had a chance to make a difference. That's what pisses me off. Like, you really are threatening people's lives with that.
Exactly. You know, and just to look up some more information in case you haven't seen the effects of fracking, you check out documentaries from Josh Fox. He has Gasland and Gasland 2. And just watch them. Just watch what people have to go through. And he does a good job of going to people's households and watching them, you know, open their faucets and lighting their water on fire and the effects of that on everyday people. So please check that out when you get a chance and look at the real world effects of fracking.
Yeah, alrighty. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We are Sunday Blues Podcast. You can find our website at www.sundayblues.com. Our Twitter handle is @SundayBluesPod. And we are available on YouTube, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. So please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Hit us up on our different platforms. We really appreciate everything we can get in terms of reviews and feedback from you guys. All right. Love you.